Go to chapter 22, the labor markets. So when we talk about the labor market, we're talking about where the supply and the demand for labor meets or interchange. That's what the labor market is. So we'll go on. The demand curve for labor. The price of labor is the wage rate. This is the amount of money that has to be paid to people for them to work for a period of time. The demand curve for labor slopes downward from left to right. This is because wage rate and the demand for labor are inversely related. This means that when wages rise, firms demand few workers, and when wages fall, they demand for more. The demand curve for labor, DL, is shown in figure 22.1. If the wage rate is 600 per week, 100 workers are required. 600 per week, 100 workers are required. And if the wage rate increases to 800, few workers will be needed, which is 80. I think it's clear. So let me explain what I've just read. The demand curve for labor is always downward slope. Why is it downward slope? It's downward slope because as soon as the wage rate increases, the demand for labor falls. If wage rate falls, the demand for labor increases. So when wage rate increases, firms will not be willing to employ more workers because it increases their cost. But as soon as wage rate falls, they have the incentive to increase the numbers of workers they have. That is why it is inverse. There's inverse relationship between the wage rate and the amount labor itself, demand curve. Is it clear? Are you sure it's clear?
Yeah.
So we go down. The factors affecting the wage rates.
No.
The factors affecting demand for labor. Sorry. The factors affecting the demand for labor. And what is demand for labor itself? Demand for labor is the number of workers firms are willing to employ at a given wage rate. Demand for labor is the number of workers firms are willing to employ at a given wage rate. That is demand for labor. So what are the factors that affect demand for labor? Number one, demand for the products. One thing is this: the demand for labor is always derived demand. The derived demand. It means workers are needed whenever they need to produce certain products. So I won't just employ you for nothing. I would have employed you because there's a job you have to do, which I have to pay for. I won't just pay you for nothing. So demand for the products will determine if we need more workers or not. So that's why I said demand for the products. The demand for labor is said to be a derived demand. This means that demand for labor is derived from the demand for the goods and services supplied by firms and public sector organizations. So if firms need more, or if the demand increases, if demand increases for firms, consumers are willing to buy more, firms will have to meet up with this demand. As a result, they might have to employ workers. That was the first point. Is it clear?
Yes. Derived demand, I don't really understand it.
Okay. There's demand for labor, which is the total number of workers firms are willing to employ at a given price and time. So now we're going to go into factors that determine the demand for labor. Since we know what demand for labor is, that means firms wanting to employ workers. So what will make firms to want to employ workers? That's the factors, right? So the first one they mentioned there is demand for the products. So before we go into the demand for the products, demand for labor itself is a derived demand. Why do we call it derived demand? We call it derived demand because workers are employed for the fact that they have something to do. So nobody employs you for no reason to get you paid for. No, I would have employed you because you have a function, a job, a role to perform. So that is what derived is about. So workers are employed based on the fact that they have a job to do. So that's why the demand for labor is what is derived demand. Is it clear now? So that means workers will be employed whenever there's need for them to carry out a specific task. So that's what demand for labor is derived from. Is it clear? Now the second factor is availability of substitutes. Demand for labor may be affected by the cost and availability of substitute for labor. So what is the substitute for labor? It's technology, capital. So if the cost of capital is increasing, then firms might switch to employing more workers. And if, on the other hand, if the cost of firms or if the cost of labor is increasing, firms might deem fit to start becoming capital intensive instead of labor intensive. Clear? The third point, productivity of labor. So The productivity of labor may also affect demand. If every worker is able to produce more output, demand for workers is likely to increase. This is because production becomes more profitable provided the extra output can be sold. So the third point here is about productivity of labor. If labor productivity is increasing, it will have meant that when you look at productivity of labor, you like, if productivity of labor is increasing, why do we have to employ more workers? That's what you would think. Well, they said productivity of labor. For productivity of labor, they said it's a factor that determines if workers should be employed more or not. Now, the point they are making is this. For labor productivity, if firms understand that employing more workers increases their productivity, increases their output, they will do that. That is the point they are making here. Did you get the point now? So, an increase in labor productivity would mean that labor is profitable. It means labor is efficient. So if labor is efficient, it would make cost of production to fall. Waste would reduce and profitability would increase for firms. So they will employ more. The demand for labor would increase if productivity of labor is increasing. Is it clear? The next one, other employment costs. So when we talk about other employment costs, they said the demand for labor may also be affected by the other costs linked to employing labor. This includes national insurance contributions, which are paid by to the government when employing a worker in some countries, recruitment and selection costs, the cost of pensions and the rest. So all that is attached to employment, because as soon as you employ an individual, there's employment benefits. There's employment benefit. There's wages that has to be paid or salary that has to be paid. In the cost of it, there is cost of recruiting that employee. If all these things are high for firms, they would rather not to employ. Do you understand? So a high cost of recruitment might reduce the demand for labor. A lower cost of recruitment might increase the demand for labor. Is it clear? Any question about that? So for demand for labor may also affect, like I said, so changes in these factors will have an effect on the demand curve for labor. For example, if there's an increase in the demand for air travel, there will be an increase in the demand for cabin crews. This will shift the demand curve for cabin crew workers to the right, from DL1 to DL2. As the wage rate will rise from W1. Wait, okay, here the wage rate is remaining constant. Quantity, okay. So what they're saying is there's going to be a shift in demand for labor if other things that are needed for labor increases. So they are making an example of air flight here. So if the demand for air flight increases, that means, they said, for air travel or air flight increases, there will be increase in the demand for cabin crew. So if air flight is increasing in terms of demand, you will need the cabin crew to meet up with the demand in the market. So that will shift the demand for labor, right, from DL1 to DL2. Then the quantity supplied in the market, the quantity of labor will increase or expand from QL1 to QL2. We're not talking about wage rate. Wage rate is constant. Is it clear?
Yes.
Any question about that? So go to the supply curve for labor. What is supply of labor? Supply of labor is the numbers of workers making themselves available for job at a given wage rate. The numbers of workers making themselves available for job at a given wage rate. You get the supply for labor. Supply of, demand for. You get it? So what is the supply curve for labor? The supply curve for labor slopes upward from left to right. This is because wages and quantity of labor supplied are proportionately related. So, for example, if wage rates rises, more people will make themselves available for work. Like I told you earlier, supply of labor is the number of people making themselves available for work. So there's a direct link between wages and the numbers of workers making themselves available. So if wage rate increases, numbers of workers making themselves available for work will increase. If wage rate falls, people will not be willing to work. As a result of that, the supply of labor would fall. Is it clear? So that's why it's upward slope. Clear?
Yes.
Now go to factors affecting the supply of labor. Are you there? The first one, population size. in most countries in the world, the size of population is growing. The global population was 74 billion in 2016. However, this was predicted to rise to 97 billion by 2050. As the population grows, there will be more people available for work. Therefore, the supply of labor will tend to increase over time. So the population size will determine the supply of labor. If the population is increasing, the supply of labor would increase. If it's reducing, the supply of labor would increase. Would decrease, sorry. Migration is another factor. So people moving in and out of the country will determine the supply of labor. So if people come in, if the number of immigration, the number of immigrants increases, the supply of labor will increase in that economy. Did you get it?
Yes.
Then the third one, age distribution of the population. The age distribution of the overall population of the country may have an effect. In most developed countries in the world, there is an aging population. This means that the number of people over the age of 65 as a proportion of the total population is increasing. This also means that dependency ratio is rising. This is the proportion of dependents. Dependents, not workers to workers in the population. As population ages, the dependency ratio may increase, and this places a financial burden on the rest of the population. If there's an increase in aging population, that means people that are able to work are reducing.
Yeah.
So if the numbers of people that are able to work are reducing, it means that the numbers of people that are depending on those that are working would increase.
Yeah.
And that means there's a burden on the working population. So if the aging population is increasing, the supply of labor would fall.
Yeah.
So one thing government could do as a result of this is to increase the retirement age. So if government increases the retirement age, the supply of labor would rise. Do you get it or not?
Okay.
I will. Aging population talks about the population that is about to retire. So if the population that is about to retire, if the number of people that are about to retire are high, it means the supply of labor in the economy would fall. So one thing government could do is to increase the retirement age. So if government increases the retirement age, people will stay more. People will spend more time at work before retirement. As a result, the supply of labor would increase. Is it clear now? So the aging population, I've talked about it and I've linked it to retirement age. I've said two things here.
Yeah.
The aging population is the number of people that are about to, the old people in the economy. If the numbers are increasing, the supply of labor would fall.
Yeah.
So for aging population for you to be able to define aging population more than being from 65 is to increase the retirement age, which they talked about here. So when you increase the retirement age, the supply of labor would increase.
Yeah.
Do you understand aging population linking to retirement age here?
Yes.
I've said both. Is it clear?
Yeah.
So this will increase the supply of labor.
Yeah.
Clear?
Yes.
School leaving age. In most countries, children must attend school until they reach a certain age. This is called the school leaving age. Once this age is reached, children are allowed to work. Consequently, any changes of the school leaving age can affect the supply of labor. For example, in Ireland, let me just explain it. For school leaving age, if the number of time children have to spend in school is high before they finish school, the supply of labor would fall. But if government reduces the school leaving age, then people will be able to work at a tender age. The supply of labor would increase. Is it clear?
Yeah.
That's the point about that. Any question?
No.
It said, okay. In Ireland, the government announced that it would raise the school leaving age from 16 to 17 in 2016. This is that the supply of labor will reduce because children will not be allowed to work until. So if the living age reduces, supply of labor would increase. If the living age rises, supply of labor would fall. Clear?
Yeah.
Female participation. If women are allowed to work, the supply of labor would rise. If women are not given the opportunity to work or to participate in labor, the supply of labor would fall. Clear? Skills and qualification. The kind of jobs that are available, if the involvement of the job is for qualified workers, let me put it this way. For skills and qualification, if Let me read it so I can put it together. The supply of labor will tend to increase if people become more employable. This can happen if people have good and well qualified. The quality of labor is discussed more. Okay, what they are saying is this. The skills and qualifications is also a factor that increases the supply or reduces the supply of labor. If I want to work, I feel like I want to work. But I need to possess the qualification and skills, necessary skills to work, yes or no? So if the population, if the numbers of people that have the skills and qualification are much, that means the supply of labor would increase. But if the numbers of people that have skills and qualification to work is less, the supply of labor would fall. Is it clear now? Great. Then labor mobility. When we talk about labor mobility, we're talking about the ability or the flexibility that people have to be able to switch from one job to another. You get it? So labor mobility can have an impact on the supply of labor in particular labor market. For example, if workers are geographically mobile, so there's geographical mobility of labor, there's occupational mobility of labor. But both of them is talking about labor flexibility. Yeah, labor flexibility. There's labor mobility. Labor mobility means labor flexibility. And for labor flexibility, we're talking about geographical mobility of labor or occupational mobility of labor. For geographical mobility of labor, here we're talking about if workers are able to move from one area to another, the supply of labor would increase. But if workers are unable to move, maybe because of family, they cannot leave their family, they cannot locate into another place, other region, then the supply of labor in that region would fall. Do you get it? That's geographical location. So, do they talk about occupational mobility here? Geographical.
No.
They did not. Wait, let me see. Oh, they did not. Okay, let me just explain that story. So, the supply curve will shift rightward if workers are able to move from SL1 to SL2. But if they are unable to move, it will shift leftward from SL2 to SL1. I think it's clear. Okay. Therefore, occupational mobility of labor, we're talking about the ability an individual has to be able to switch from one job to another. Before now, I was a banker. Now I'm a teacher. So there's occupational mobility in my job. But I have occupational mobility. You get it? That is the point I'm making. Any question about that? So we go down to wage determination, right? Okay. So when we talk about wage determination, we're talking about what really brings about wages paid to employees. So the wage rate is in any labor market is determined by the interaction between supply and demand for labor. So wage rate is determined by the demand for and the supply of labor. So if the wage rate, if demand for labor increases, the wage rate would rise. If the supply of labor increases, the wage rate would fall. Is it clear? So let's see the impact. I think that point is clear. So there's what we call wage equilibrium wage rate. This is where demand for and supply of labor meets at DL1, SL1, which is 80,800. Clear? Call it equilibrium wage rate. Any question about that? So we'll move on. The importance of the quantity and the quality of labor to business. When a business is considering location for its operation, it is not just the cost of labor that is important. It is also the quantity and the quality of human capital. And what is human capital? The value a worker is able to put on the desk. That is what human capital is. So it is important to understand the quality of the workers too. So a business is not likely to locate a factory in a particular place just because labor is cheap. A business has to consider whether the labor available meets the skills required to maintain quality standards. Businesses cannot afford the consequence of poor quality work. In some of the locations where labor is cheap, most of the workers are unskilled and often poorly educated. Consequently, a business setting up an operation in that location may have to invest substantially sums of money in training unless all the work on offer is unskilled. So the first thing we are talking about here is that when you are determining the location of your industry, your firm, or your office, or your factory, you don't only think about the cost of labor, which is, oh, it's cheap, let me go there. You have to also think about the requirements of labor for that factory that you are opening. If it is skilled, you have to understand that it's going to be expensive. But if you need unskilled workers, which are cheap, then it means that the job they have to do does not require skills and qualification. And if it does require skills and education, that means you have to invest heavily on training. Yes, sure. The importance of quality and quantity of labor. Quantity of labor means how cheap it is to employ. Yeah. Quality means how skillful or qualified you are. So if you are skillful and qualified, that means you get more pay. So when firms are locating their firms, their factories, they should not only consider how cheap labor is, they should also put into consideration the quality of workers. Because if workers are not qualified, they don't have that skills, then they will give you poor work, which is not good for you. Or else you are willing and able to invest more on their training. That is the point they are making. Is it clear now? Yes. That is the impact on quality and quantity of labor. Then the impact on, is it clear now? Yeah. The impact on education and training on the quality of human capital. Because human capital means the value individuals has that he or she could put as an impact to the work. So how does this impact education and training? They said the quality of human capital and the quality of labor can be improved through education and training. Although the price of labor is important for businesses when making decisions about how many workers to hire, the quality of labor is also important. Generally, employers will want to recruit people who can read and write and have good communication skills. They will also want to recruit people with specialist skills. If the labor supply is well educated and trained, it will be more productive. The responsibility for education and training is, in most countries, is divided between the state and firms. Over time, the country would want to improve the quality of labor so that it is more productive. This will require investment by the state and firms in training and education. The main reason for training is to provide workers with the skills, the necessary skills and knowledge needed to do their jobs effectively. So, the need for education and training, the rest are stories. The need for education and training varies. So I'm going to start with, because we have three types of workers. We have skilled workers, unskilled workers, semi-skilled workers. Skilled workers have education and training. Unskilled lack it. Semi-skilled, they are in between education and vocation. So it is important for your workers to be skilled and qualified. That is why we can get this done through education and training. So what does education and training do? Education and training brings about improvement in your knowledge. Those ones you have, you improve in them. Those that do not have will now have. Yeah. So that is the importance of education and training. So the government of a country and firms would always want to have workforce that is educated. So they invest heavily on this so that their workforce will be attractive. When workforce is attractive, productivity will increase. And not only productivity that will increase, it will also attract FDIs, foreign direct investment, multinationals to come into your country because they notice that your country has a lot of skilled workers that would increase their productivity if they step up here. Is the need for education and training clear now? Yeah. Any questions about that? We have multiple choice questions. Which of the following would help to increase the labor supply in the country? Labor supply in the country. Labor supply, supply of labor.
Raise the retirement.
Great, raise the retirement age. Question 2. Which of the following might be a reason for a business to invest more in training?
Improve labor flexibility.
Yeah, labor flexibility. I told you already. Education would improve your flexibility.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to switch. Like I was a banker now on this.
Yes.
Yeah. Education and training has allowed me to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Is it clear? So that ends the chapter 22, right? Labor markets.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of MCQ questions to do.
Yeah.